You're listening to the sweet sounds of the After Movie Diner. Support us at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Or I'll punch you in the teats. Rate and review us on iTunes, Earthling. And now, here's your host, John Cross.
Hello, Chief. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
Oh, Jesus. I just sat through too much sun, so...
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
What a unique feeling it is to have watched that movie. and not have the luxury of being able to press stop or walk out of the cinema.
Right. Well, I mean,
not that this was presumably ever at the cinema.
What's incredible is that essentially this is the closest the listeners will get to us commenting almost immediately, because you just finished the movie and I finished it about 45 minutes ago.
Well, normally we...
Well, normally you're still watching the movie because you like to make...
Normally, not that it'll happen for a long time, but, usually we've just walked out of a movie, haven't we?
Right. Well, no, that's what I'm saying, but the closest in the virtual realm is what I mean. Since doing it, via Skype, this is the closest we've got to immediacy.
I've never done it via Skype.
This is the closest we've got to immediacy.
Yeah, immediacy. Yeah.
This is basically our equivalent of a reaction video. You know what I mean? Which we should start doing on YouTube.
A long, wordy, pointless reaction video. That's what we are, mate.
The thing is, if we made a YouTube reaction video to the movie Too Much Sun, it would just be you and me with our jaws very slack, looking aghast into the middle distance and wondering what we've done with our lives.
Yeah. I'd say that's probably about fair. Yeah, that's probably about right.
It would either that or both of us wearing Drive-like white wife-beater vests like Ryan Gosling and just staring out of windows. And
we might get paid to do that, though, man. That's very fashionable.
But yeah, so the after movie, that could be a thing. I mean, I'm sure someone already does it, but existential ennui reaction video.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I bet they do. I bet somewhere there must be, right?
The despair of humanity reaction videos. So in other words, I just watched the latest Marvel film. That made me want to die. Yeah. Anyway, how have you been? How's your week been?
Long, exhausting. I think that's it.
Okay, that's enough of that. I mean, this is what I mean about like the angst of us and what our YouTube videos feel like.
Yeah.
It would just be us trying to hold our heads up without...
Yeah, just trying to keep it together.
Yeah, without falling massively apart. Well, on top of the end of last week, where I interviewed Robert Wool, which you can hear both on the last episode of The Diner and on Booth Talk. And the reason why I did that, for people are like, oh, why is he putting it out twice? I'll tell you why. It's because a lot of people... I think
if people ask you a question, any question, online anyway, you just be grateful.
Well, I don't think... No one's asked me that.
They're really annoyed. If they're like, what I don't understand about The Diner is, you go, great, they're talking to me.
Well, two things. First of all, I thought it would get people listening to the Missing Pieces episode, because it's always hard to get people listening to a movie that no one's ever heard of, even though we had a good time with it. Outside of our regular, united force of listeners, so our regular, come rain, come shine, come Eric Idle, outrageously bad film season or not, they'll listen to anything.
I don't think we're going to bring... Please tell me we're not going to bring back the outrageously bad Eric Idle season.
No, never again.
Okay, good.
Never again. But no, the reason why
I don't ever want to do an outrageously bad film season ever. Like, pandemic life has already shaved so much. It's already stolen so much joy from me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. The few moments that I get, I don't want to piss up against the wall of Eric Idle's terrible agent, I guess, right? Like, there's got to be some reason why he was in this.
But the reason why I put Robert Wool in the episode last week is, first of all, I thought it would get people listening to the Missing Pieces podcast.
Did it?
But secondly, I haven't checked, and I don't care. And secondly...
You care a bit, though, or you wouldn't have done it. But, yes,
but secondly, I don't know that everyone realizes that when I do interviews, I post them on a separate podcast feed.
You post them on a separate podcast feed? What's that called? The
Booth Talk from the After Movie Dining.
What are other good examples of interviews that people could find in this Booth Talk?
You could listen to an interview with, for example, Joe Bob Briggs, the renowned cult movie commentator.
He's very famous. That's the kind of a name that would get a listener's ears pricking up right away. Do you have another example?
I do have another example. What about world-renowned martial artist Scott Adkins?
Not Scott Adkins, the world-renowned martial artist.
Yes, he has been on not once but twice. And
twice. You have two. Would you recommend a particular Scott Adkins episode?
Probably the first one.
Probably the first one.
But the second one recently.
That's what I would go with. Adkins is famous for being entertaining in chronological order.
What about the fact that we have interviewed renowned character actor William Sadler twice? The first time we interviewed him, he was in a Marvel movie as the president and in the latest Robert Rodriguez joint. And then last year when I interviewed him, he was in VFW, the big cult film of the year, and he was in the Bill and Ted sequel.
Is that William Sadler, renowned poetry fan?
Yeah, renowned poetry fan William Sadler, who now officially owns a copy of your book, mate.
He does. He may never read it, but he owns it.
Listen, I reached out to my buddy Bill, my friend Bill.
Bill Sadler. Yeah,
I reached old Billy Saddles, and I reached out to old Billy Saddles, and I said, "Listen, my friend was awfully chuffed that you liked my post about his poetry."
I was as well. That's no exaggeration. Chuffed is underplaying.
Chuffed is underplaying the level of chuffedness that you felt.
Exactly.
The level of jollity and pride that swelled in your bosom.
Pride is probably
pride is pretty good. And I have to say, listeners, for an Englishman such as Jim to express any kind of pride is a leap of large proportions. It's equivalent of Superman leaping a building in a single bound. An Englishman showing a goose fart's worth of pride is, in his own work.
You probably have to move to America and live there for 10 years before it's even possible.
Before it's even remotely possible. But so I contacted Billy Saddles and I said, do you want a copy of his book? And because you liked the post. And he was like, that would be lovely. I'm not giving you my address, but that would be lovely. He said, please send it to my agent and he'll send it to me. So
which I did. I did do that thing.
Which makes sense. I mean, listen.
No, of course, yeah. I wouldn't expect that.
Because what would happen is I'd be driving through upstate New York where I think he lives, and I would be like, oh, Kim, my friend William Sadler lives nearby. Let's just drop in and say hello. And then I would show up and he'd be like, who the fuck are you? Get off my property, and probably have me shot or something, which would be a perfectly reasonable...
Well, also, what a way to go. What an end to the obituary that would be.
Indeed. To go back, podcast feed Booth Talk. If you subscribe to After Movie Diner on either Spreaker or Apple Podcasts, Booth Talk is there in the suggested, if you like this, you would also like this.
And the interviews come thick and fast. Surprise interviews with Peter Weller. Bruce Campbell.
Wait, is that RoboCop and Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Through the Eighth Dimension, Peter Weller?
The very same.
Wow.
Also noted golf fan
and jazz musician.
It takes quite a long time to pry him away from the golf to talk about other things.
And jazz musician.
When he does, he's cooking on gas.
He is cooking on gas. What about and considering they have become something of the of a darling of the indie music scene during the pandemic. What about lead singer and renowned poet of the Mountain Goats, John Darnielle, talking about his favourite slasher films?
Yeah, of all your interviews, the favourite slasher films of John Darnielle is the one that I still don't understand why everybody doesn't listen to that, why that isn't literally everywhere. I don't get it. It's so interesting and entertaining.
Yeah, and also he talks about taking his kid to see Spider-Man in the multiverse, which I'd only just seen myself, and it was a pleasure to hear him talk about like the joys of showing his kid something creative and inventive and weird. So listen to that. But anyway, for people who don't know, there is a really good interview podcast out there, and it's called Booth Talk, and it is really good, and I take pride in it. And coming up on that very show, the obviously the full interview with Robert Wuhl is already out there, but we have Keith Coogan from Toy Soldiers, Don't Tell Mum the Babysitter's Dead, and Adventures in Babysitting. He's big on babysitting. Yeah. He's a big...
If you're making a babysitter movie in the 80s...
Keith Coogan, he's your guy.
Call up the Coog.
Old Keithy Coogs. So he'll be coming on the show. But that's not all. What? That's not all? I hear you cry. What about other...
No, I'm sorry. That must be all.
No. What about that...
How can that not be all?
No, it's not all. How about that other renowned 80s superstar, and I do not use that word lightly, back-to-back hits? Steve Guttenberg's on the show.
Steve Guttenberg? Not Stevie Goots.
The Stevie Goots is on Booth Talk from After Movie Diner. Stevie Goots.
You go in there and actually look down the people you've interviewed. It's an incredibly impressive roster.
It's a very good list.
There's obviously going to be a few names for everybody who are like, wait, who's that? But then when you find out who it is, it's interesting and entertaining. But there's some big, really interesting names in there. Don't you have? You've got what's his face? Ironside, right? Don't you've got
Michael Ironside?
Michael Ironside,
renowned villain, and
that bloke from Halloween 3. What's his name?
Tom Atkins. Yeah, we got him.
What about the fucking who's the director? You know, the full he doesn't have the full moon.
Charles Band. So yeah, I've interviewed Charles Band.
The bloke, one of my favourite director of Sudden Death, and Peter Hyams.
Yes, Peter Hyams. Although I think Peter Hyams is still part of the After Movie Diner podcast stream. I have not moved I've not separated out his interview and moved it over to the Booth Talk stream yet.
He was a good one.
But I should do.
That was a good interview, the Hyams one.
But yeah, how about Scott Spiegel, a close personal friend of Quentin Tarantino, who I geek out with over Pam Grier. That's a classic episode, Scott Spiegel. It's incredible. Obviously, you've got all the Evil Dead people. I've interviewed literally everyone from the Evil Dead. Bruce Campbell, Ted Raimi, Ray Santiago, and Dana DiLorenzo from the TV series. But I've also interviewed the ladies of the Evil Dead and Hal Delrich, whose real name is Rich DeManicore. So we have covered almost everyone from... And weirdly... although I haven't interviewed her, Denise Bixler, who shows up in Evil Dead 2, was married to Steve Guttenberg. So it all ties in.
Yeah. Ask the Goots what he reckons about Evil Dead 2, what his feeling is.
But I tell you what, maybe you're an action fan. What about Don the Dragon Wilson? Cynthia Rothrock? Yeah?
All the greats, mate. All the greats.
Fred the Hammer Williamson, you know? The composer of all the Fast and Furious movies music, and 2 Marvel movies and a bunch of other ones, Brian Tyler, had him on the show.
He was great. He was a good one.
He did the Universal when Universal turned 70. I think Universal turned 70, and they wanted to redo their logo, spiff it up a bit, and they wanted a new. They wanted the same tune, but like a new orchestral arrangement of it. Brian Tyler did that. Spoke to him all about it.
Very cool. Very cool.
William Sadler, not the only actor to have starred in a Marvel movie that I've interviewed. What about Ray Stevenson? The Punisher. Ray Stevenson.
Didn't you talk to him after? What is it? Is it Fair Game? Is that what it was called?
Big Game.
Big Game. The Samuel L. Jackson one, that was a fun movie. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, we also talked to the director of that. But anyway. Further excitement coming up after Steve Guttenberg. You're like, how much more exciting could it be?
I'm
than
sorry,
Steve
I don't think
Guttenberg?
I can actually handle any more excitement. I may have to ask you to stop.
The indie Christmas gritty crime action hit that everyone's talking about, starring Mel Gibson, Fat Man, that came out over the winter. Great movie, by the way. absolutely fantastic movie. I just interviewed the directors of that film. Boom. Coming up soon.
Very nice. Very nice.
Ian and Esham Nelms, which will be coming up. They also directed Small Town Crime, which gives John Hawkes a rare leading man role. And that is also really good.
Oh, that's on Netflix, right? Isn't that on Netflix?
It was on Netflix. It's no longer on Netflix. But it's available to rent wherever you rent stuff, and it's super cheap. But Robert Forster in that movie... amazing. Robert Forster will have you laughing all the way through that movie. Just fantastic. Back to back, Small Town Crime and Fat Man, two great movies that I cannot recommend enough for their weirdly dark humor, their interesting satire, and just their like slightly left of center sensibilities, all the while making a talky but pacey indie crime drama.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What would the exact opposite of that movie be?
The exact opposite of what movie?
The one you just described. You know,
Small Town Crime or...
interesting. No. The one you just...
Fat Man.
Yeah. Like, you said it was interesting and funny and, you know, off kilter. So I'm just wondering, is there anything that's, like, boring and unfunny
and not satirical, even though it thinks it is?
Satirical, despite the fact that it thinks it is?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That would be...
Is there a film out there like that?
It's very clever. It's very
maybe?
clever that you're bringing it back around to this week's choice on the After Movie Diner for the Eric Idle's Outrageously Bad Film Season, Too Much Sun. Well, it's the Outrageously Bad Eric Idle Film Season. Yeah, it's the Outrageously Bad Eric Idle Film Season. And in typical Idle fashion, I thought I'd start it with a song. Nobody asked me to, but I need to make more references to penises and dongs. Some thinly veiled innuendos about tits that some might think passes for wit and ingratiates me with the LA set, who are quick to embrace me and quick to forget that I've made some truly outrageously bad films for some reason. Well, here's the After Movie Diner back to remind you with the Outrageously Bad Eric Idle Film Season. It's the Outrageously Bad Eric Idle Film Season. It's the Outrageously Bad Eric Idle Film Season. Outrageously bad. Oh yeah, you gotta always look on the bright side of life, except during the Outrageously Bad Eric Idle Film Season. And this song has gone on far too long without mentioning my dong. Oh, something like that anyway. Boobs. We've got an email from Andy Lunn. We've got an email from Andy Lunn. We've got an email from Andy Lunn. I'm not singing the whole song. No. He writes, "Hi fellas." You see, hi fella. You've been incorporated now. You're part of the whole crew. You were last time and you are this time. Great episode on a movie that I'm now genuinely intrigued to see. Missing Pieces. The Wool.
He meant Splitting Hairs.
No. The Wool interview, too, was excellent.
That does not surprise me.
That does not surprise you.
Surprise me.
And just
tell me something I don't know, Andy Lamb.
Just to repeat something that I've said to Andy on Facebook about 3 times. No one pulls the wool over your eyes. It's a Robert. You don't get it. No, it's a Robert Wool pun. Many years. Yeah.
I thought I was looking for the Andy Lunn pun.
No, it's a Robert Wool pun. Nobody pulls
the wool over Robert's. I get it.
Anyway, Andy goes on to say, many years ago, I used to regularly get wool mixed up with Liv Schreiber. What an idiot I was back then. Yeah, that's weird. I don't quite understand how one would confuse the two, but okay, I'm willing to go with it.
I guess they look a bit similar.
So Andy's going to be very disappointed because his next sentence begins, am I correct in recalling that Nuns on the Run is this week's treat? If so, I do look forward to hearing you discuss it. It was bad enough in the early 90s. I cannot imagine what the ravages of time has done to it. So
I like Nuns on the Run, and I don't think I'm going to change my mind.
Okay, so quick thing. In order to end the Eric Idle Outrageously Bad Film Season and try and redeem it a little bit, are we doing Nuns on the Run next week or aren't we? Because it was a possible, but we weren't sure. Have we had too much Idle?
I just feel like I've had enough Idle.
Yeah,
and I don't really want to spend an entire podcast dancing around, like, is it a good idea for them to dress up as women and play it for laughs or not? Which is all we'd end up talking about, and I think that would be super boring, so I think I'd rather just leave it.
Okay, so Andy goes on to say, I agree with you, by the way, I cannot imagine what the Ravages of Time have done to it. What I do recall is that it was one of the early UK 12 certificates, although 15 on video, as that was how it worked at the time. Wikipedia tells me that despite the introduction of the 12A in 2002, Nuns on the Run still remains a 15 on home media. What this meant back in 1990 was that if you were 12 years old, you could go and see about a minute's worth of tits up on the big screen in the infamous shower sequence, providing you were willing to sit through 88 shitty minutes as a trade-off. I'm sure there are many 40-somethings with that memory to this day. Anyhow, if it turns out that you're not watching Nuns this week, then I apologize for the rambling. Before I go on, I must answer your previous question about if I ever listened to your show in my shed. The answer to that is almost. Early last year, we replaced our shed. Wow, we are getting. Look, I want people to send me shed anecdotes. It used to be on the right-hand side of the garden and was there when we moved in. I never liked it there as that area got the most sunshine. Therefore, when we finally replaced it, after it had been there for at least a good 16 years, we put the new one at the bottom of the garden, and I set about sowing grass seed where the old shed used to be. This meant that when it came to Sleazy Spader springtime, I was able to sit out and listen to the show and catch some rays on the spot of our former shed. Does that qualify?
Oh, right. No, yeah, I think that's acceptable. Like, it's, the spirit of the shed.
The spirit of the 16-year-old shed. Andy, that is a joy. That is a wonder. Tell
us about your shed or near shed experiences.
Yes, I would like to put a call out right now to everyone. I want shed anecdotes. They can be After Movie Diner related or not, but please send us your shed anecdotes.
It's impossible to bore us with shed anecdotes. If there's a shed in it, we want to hear it.
We do. We want to hear a shed anecdote. So please do send us all of your shed anecdotes. And Andy, I think for sending us a shed anecdote, I will have to figure out some kind of prize. Maybe we send him an After Movie Diner mug or something.
Sure.
Yeah, why don't we do that? So Andy, tell us your mug size and we'll send you an After Movie Diner mug. Anyone who has a shed anecdote, please send it to hello at aftermoviediner.com. Just one hello at aftermoviediner.com or aftermoviediner@gmail.com. Or you can call us at 347-669-0053 and leave us a voicemail. That's 347-669-0053 and leave us a voicemail. Or go over to speakpipe.com/aftermoviediner. Any which way you want to do it, we don't mind. Send us your shed anecdotes. It's all about the sheds, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you ever so much, Andy Lunn. Well, how about that? A shed adjacent listening. What do you think?
A near shed experience.
And not a shared experience, but a shed experience. I have to say, the image of Andy Lunn lying out on the now in the sun
as we tickled his earbuds with our disgusting James Spader.
There's just something delightful about the image of Andy Lunn on a brisk late spring day, listening to James Spader in his now sunny patch of garden.
Summer. By the time we get around to the sleazy springtime,
it's true.
It's usually summer.
By the way, we have one last comment before we get into this movie.
Whoa.
This was a new review, a new 5-star review.
Whoa! We haven't had a review since Obama.
We had a review July of last year.
Oh, okay.
But before then, it was 2 years ago. But
yes, review from July of last year.
That was.
Never tell me about the reviews.
That was from Matt, who runs the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur, and he said, this podcast is always a lot of fun, whether it's Sleazy Spader or Ninja Vember or just a one-off show any other time of the year. I'm always entertained and always look forward to it. But this time around, the caption is, Jim is a wild man. Yay! We got the review. It says this: the main host, John Cross, is fairly witty and brings a moderate amount of style and personality to the show. However, his co-host Jim is simply just a wild man, completely uncontrollable, and can only be described as a human powder keg of ruckus and ferociousness waiting to explode at a moment's notice. Whether it's his nonsensical ramblings and wild speculation about the motives behind a director's misguided vision, or his blatant disregard of John's very reasonable opinion about such matters as Jim's ugly bum face, Wild Man Jim is known for invoking such remarks from John as, "Can we please talk about this bloody movie?" And I'm trying to introduce the bloody movie, and of course I don't know why I even bother trying anymore. Like a majestic wild Mustang running free through the hills and valleys of the northern Rocky Mountains, Jim Wallace cannot be restrained by the structure and rules of everyday podcast conversation. You speak and then I speak. I think not. Wild Man Jim does as he pleases. Why? Because he knows no other way. In Webster's English Dictionary, there is a full page dedicated to the word wild man, in which there are just 2 pictures of Jim, because one isn't enough. Ancient mystical scrolls foretold of a man so wild that conventional societal guidelines pertaining to conversation would never be considered, let alone attempted. That man, Jim Wallace. More recently, the local state penitentiary dedicated its highest security cell block housing its most violent and deranged, criminally insane inmates as the Wild Man Jim Wallace Wing. And finally, there is an old wives' tale about Wild Man Jim roaming the countryside, becoming furious at the thought of a dish called the Dino Wellington, and biting the heads off of unsuspecting restaurant employees who forgot to bring milk for his chamomile tea. All of that is to say, this podcast overall is good, I guess. That is amazing.
Do we know?
I do know, and I wonder if I want to tell you or not.
You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. You don't want to.
But that was that. Listen, the review gauntlet has been thrown down. Can anyone better that as a podcast review?
I would doubt. That was brilliant. That was really funny.
That was great, and I think I was laughing too much to really read it and give it its full.
No, it was really good. I enjoyed that.
But yeah, that was fantastic. So look, the review gauntlet has been thrown down. We're asking for shared anecdotes, and we're asking for reviews. Go over and review us. Go over and review us, you shits.
You're freeloading Shadites.
Yeah, just go do it. And do it on any platform. It doesn't have to be Apple. You don't have to, go deep into the Apple whatever. I don't know what I'm saying. What am I saying, Jim? You don't have to. You
embarked on the journey and you hoped that it would
go somewhere. What I mean is, you don't have to suckle at the dangerous corporate teat of Apple. By all means, find whatever. I don't know,
find another Pete.
Whatever loose hipster podcast app you use, and review us on there. I don't mind. Whatever you want to do. If there is an organic, gluten-free, grass-fed...
Yeah, write it on an apple. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Throw it over a wall. That'll do.
Stick an arrow through it and fire it through my window, narrowly missing my neck. So we've put it off long enough, sadly. The time has come to discuss Too Much Sun, a 1990s film made by Robert Downey Sr.
Film should be in quotation marks.
Film loosely, made by Robert Downey Sr., who made a little bit of a splash at the end of the 60s, early 70s. And by the way, because I had 45 minutes after Too Much Sun finished and you were still watching it, I decided to, and because it's on Amazon Prime, I decided to watch a bit of Putney Swope, which is the movie Robert Downey Sr. is so well known for. And I have to say, after watching 40 minutes of it, the man has not come far. Considering the the African-American filmmaking explosion that would happen at the end of the 60s and the early 70s, and the incredibly vital and important African-American filmmakers who would, through genre film, tackle, their culture and their society. It's as if anything could get more offensive than Too Much Sun. It's almost offensive that a movie like Putney Swope, written and directed by a white guy, not that should matter, but it's all about a black guy who takes over a marketing agency, and I get it. I'm sure in 1969 it was, hip or whatever. And, I really, really hope that obviously the African-American cast in the movie had something to say about the script, and it wasn't all just Robert Downey Sr. trying to get them to say his words. But it does feel, watching the first 40 minutes of it, weirdly like that. And therefore, considering, like I say, some great African-American filmmakers were about to make really relevant movies that have sadly now been tarnished with this whole idea of being genre film and therefore not important, to have something like Putney Swope in the American Film Archives and remastered by the George Lucas Foundation and blah 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 blah, and heralded as this great art classic is, I don't know, faintly disappointing and not a little racist. Anyway, that's just my take on it. Maybe it's a 2021, hip looking back kind of take on it. But I would say don't bother watching Putney Swope. Go and pick up literally any movie made by an African-American filmmaker, either from the 70s or the 90s.
Can I just jump on that too and say, and don't bother watching Too Much Sun. Go and rent literally any other movie. Yeah,
no, that's true as well.
Don't if anybody anywhere has ever made a movie about anything, watch that. Apart
from Too Much Sun. So jump forward 20 years, 20 years from his so-called classic Putney Swope, about an African-American who gets a position of power in a marketing agency on Madison Avenue, to this movie, which is literally the worst attempt at farce that I've ever seen. Like, what's incredible is, and we've talked about Carry On during this season before, but there are something like 30 Carry On movies or whatever there are, and like them or hate them, they at least understand the basic principles of farce. This one...
Do you mean like having a joke about a bloke with a toupee and then casting a bloke with a toupee as opposed to a bloke who's bald?
No, but oh, right, yes. Yeah, he casts... Well, that's the joke, isn't it? That he's not wearing...
Is that the joke? Because they keep making... It feels like they kept a joke in the script.
Right.
And then forgot that they cast a bloke who doesn't have a toupee on. Because they keep making jokes about his toupee as if he's wearing one, and he's not wearing one.
He's not wearing one.
I couldn't understand it.
Well, it's comedy, Jim. It's highbrow. It's art. It's art.
But am I wrong, though? Because
no, you're not wrong. It's horseshit.
They just forgot to change the script. And that feels like that level of just sort of pointless laziness.
Yeah.
It's not even like... I'm all for laziness.
No, I think based on the fact that there's a running joke in this movie that Ralph Macchio is tied to a chair, and then for the rest of the movie is never released from the chair, nor does anyone say, can we help you or untie you from the chair, I'm going to assume that the whole running gag about the toupee, non-toupee thing was intended to be in there.
It can't be, because when it starts, they're joking about, like, you'll be pissing out of your toupee or whatever. It's like, that's weird. He doesn't have a toupee, but I'll let it go. It wasn't.
It's also weird to say that he'd be pissing out of his toupee.
The toupee wasn't the punchline. The punchline was, it's a really obscene insult that then later on gets used by another character to prove that they're related, even though that's not how genetics works. But okay.
Well, I think you're looking very deeply into this movie if you think that's
fine, whatever. And then later on, there's like another joke about a toupee, and the toupee is the punchline. But again, it's not. It's supposed to be like ridiculing the guy,
right?
Like pointing out that he has a toupee. And I know about the chair thing, but again, the chair thing is like, should we just leave him tied to the chair? And the director thought yes, because that would be funny, even though he shouldn't be allowed to make those decisions.
But he shouldn't be allowed to make any decisions. He shouldn't be allowed to make any movies. The only thing you can say about Robert Downey Sr. is he was a part of the creation of Robert Downey Jr. That's about all you can say about Robert Downey Sr. And again, look, if I have seen this movie and 40 minutes of Putney Swope. So if that's enough for you to be like, but you don't understand Robert Downey Sr., then by all means point me towards something that isn't awful. But considering I looked up a review of Too Much Sun, and in the review it points out just how bad and outdated and shitty his early movies are, so we shouldn't be surprised about Too Much Sun. I'm clearly not the only person who's not that impressed with his early films. Although Putney Swope, I've heard, gets banded around a lot by, like, you know, film fans who are like, oh yeah, I know Putney Swope. But it's like Eating Raoul as well. That's another one of those, like, and I like Eating Raoul. It's the Paul Bartel movie, but it's one of those that, like, hipster film students like to go, like, oh yeah, like Putney Swope and Eating Raoul, like, oh my god, the satirical darkness and intrinsic comedy and fucking, you know, it's all that bullshit. I've got no time for it. So Jim, do you want to run down the plot of this movie, just because I've talked
Jesus
a lot?
Fucking Christ, do I have to? Okay,
you do, just very quickly, because then that way we can kind of jump into the little bits that are really bad and then move on to other things.
Okay, fair enough. So the plot is okay. Let me try and get this right. The plot is that a rich man has two kids, a son and a daughter. One's a lesbian and one's gay, and well, they're both gay. He's in deep with the church. The church makes him alter his will. They could have altered his will so that he would leave all the money to the church, but that would mean the film would be over, which in itself is a good thing. But instead, they alter the will so that one of his gay children has to produce an heir inside 12 months, which, by the way, then is completely forgotten about, because the rest of the movie is like, we've only got 3 minutes to get a baby. There's like a really weird... right, like a really weird like, oh my god, we're running out of time. He said 12 months last week.
Well, it does take 9 months to have a baby, so
no, I understand that. I'm just saying, but the rest of the movie is like, oh my god, we've got to sort this out soon or else the church gets the money. Right. And it's only a week later. So anyway, that's bullshit. Yeah. So then it's basically Eric Idle tries to have sex with straight women and get them pregnant, which he sort of does and then sort of doesn't, and that doesn't really go anywhere. And then...
Well, he tries, apparently fails, yet in the ending credits is revealed that he actually succeeded, which is, again, a joke that doesn't work at all. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, like... there's a lot of... most of the plot is... the main central plot, I guess, is while Idle's doing that, which is... He's got a very tiny role in it, really. Most of the plot is the daughter... is trying to track down a son that she had with some guy, even though it's kind of implied that the father depicted in the film is not really the father, because the son doesn't seem to know either of them.
Well, he was given up for adoption, and he is the father, because they get the blood test that says it's a match, and then the priest tears up that blood test and shows a fake one.
No, he gets it. No, you're wrong. Because that's another, like, pointless
dude, he gets
point.
A blood test, and in the car... No,
I'm telling you. He gets a blood test that's negative, and he's like, oh, great, I just have to... So then he drives the father to the wedding and says, I'll pay you $50 to disowning the woman.
No,
because he's convinced that they're not really the son. And then while they're sitting in the car, some dude drives by with an envelope that says, like, redacted or something, which is basically, oh, we were wrong. Actually, it is a positive blood test. And
that's not what happened. Earlier in the movie, he says that the blood is not a match, and he tells the woman played by Andrea Martin that it's not a match, and that we had him blood tested and not a match. But the truth is that he hasn't got the blood test yet. And then the cyclist drives by with the blood test. When he opens it up, it says it doesn't say redacted. It says. It doesn't say it's a match. It says, but I mean, it says it's a match, but there's a word on it that's like, but it is a match. And he goes, "This is some kind of bullshit." He tears it up.
I'm wrong, but I don't care enough to argue, because you could well be right. But either way, it's a complete pointless nonsense. and then eventually, and yeah, as you point out, like it turns out that the kid, Frank De La Rocca Jr., who's played by the Karate Kid,
Ralph Macchio,
inmate, who is Robert Downey Jr., doing probably the most annoying performance of anybody ever. It's indescribably irritating.
Yeah.
Because it's like, comedy English accents are funny. If I do a comedy English accent throughout the whole film, I don't have to make any jokes. I just have to gurn and do a comedy English accent all the way through. And it's like, you know, like someone really annoying at a party who was once told, like maybe early on in the evening, that something they were doing was funny, and so all they do is that thing over and over and over and over again until you want them to die. That's Robert Downey Jr. in this movie. And anyway, he turns out to be Eric Idle's son, and then Eric Idle goes around writing checks for like $75 million, even though I think they've only got 200 is the fortune. So I don't know what's going on, but it's awful. He's barely in it.
He's not bad. Okay, so all right.
He's barely in it.
He's in it all the way through, right? I agree
that he's in it all the way through.
I agree that there are some subplots.
To do. They give him hardly anything to do.
Nobody has anything to do.
And he does nothing with it.
Nobody has anything to do. Like, none of the plots.
Except the daughter, who is also wildly irritating. And even the priest, right? Like, I know villains are supposed to be unlikable, but I didn't like him at like I don't like you as an actor. I don't even know. Forget the character.
I don't like you as a human being.
And you may be lovely, but as a human being, as a person who has turned up and is acting on the screen, which I recognise is what's going on. Like, I recognise the reality of the situation. I think you're not really a priest trying to scupper their plan. You're an actor, but I don't like you.
I don't like anything about you
as an actor.
I didn't like anything about the movie.
Is garbage and annoying, and your character is garbage and annoying. But underneath all of that annoying garbage, I suspect is somebody who I actually don't like, which is a really weird experience.
Much as in Putney Swope, Robert Downey Sr. is trying to say, well, I know about the black experience. In this one, he's trying to say he knows about the gay experience. It's now, I have to say, like, yes, it's horribly offensive. Yes, it's horribly stereotyped.
It is a lot less like.
It's a lot less. It's a lot less than I was expecting. I was literally expecting Leo Rossi.
Right at the beginning, when the what's his face, the bad guy says, "My son is the most masculine thing ever," and then it cuts to Idol. I was honestly dreading what was about to happen.
Yeah, but no, I was assuming that him and also it's such weird casting. Him, Eric Idle, and Leo Rossi. Now, not a lot of people are going to necessarily know that name, but Leo, I know that name because he's been in a lot of Bill Lustig movies, and I'm a fan of Bill Lustig. So, Maniac Cop and Relentless and various other, all the Bill Lustig movies, he crops up somewhere along the line. He's also sort of normally plays like an Italian-American heavy. And that doesn't mean that, like, you shouldn't cast him as a, I don't know, sensitive gay boyfriend. But it's very odd that you would be like, I don't know, what, I guess it got to 1989 and Robert Downey Sr. looked around and was like, what celebrity friends do I have left? They've all kind of abandoned me because I'm awful, is what I'm assuming. And he's like, well, I'll put my son in the movie. His Robert Downey Jr., I imagine, put the call out to all his Brat Pack friends, all of whom said no, except Ralph Macchio.
Are they Brat Pack friends?
Well, I don't know if they've ever been in a movie together before this, but Ralph Macchio is obviously known for Crossroads and The Karate Kid, after which he's not known for much else until Cobra Kai. So I've got to imagine that after the Crossroads and The Karate Kid money either dried up or Hollywood stopped calling, that he agreed to be in this. based on, Robert Downey Jr. knows them all because he kind of hung out with them all in different ways. So, but I imagine he called up Anthony Michael Hall and he was like, no. And he called up Judd Nelson. Judd Nelson was like, no. And he called up Emilio Estevez. Emilio Estevez was no. He was like, I'm getting really thin in my little book of, annoying teen actors. Here we go, Ralph Macchio. And Macchio's like, will you pay for dinner? And he said yes, and Macchio showed up, him and his mullet, to flounce around the place.
Yeah, that seems about right.
But yeah, Eric Idle and Leo Rossi as a gay couple, thankfully didn't spend the whole movie being like, ooh, mummy, whoops, limp wristing, craziness. I don't know that anything that I just said made any sense. But
no, I know what you mean. You mean like
they weren't outrageously camp stereotypes,
like gay caricature that we were both expecting, given the plot of the movie.
And there are moments of it, like Idol wearing that leopard skin robe, and later on them both wearing black leather, stereotypical kind of YMCA, studded black leather cap kind of the Blue Oyster from Police Academy type thing. But that kind of get up, which again is a little just like, oh, for fuck's sake, give it a rest. I'm not going to say that it's in any way a sensitive portrayal of gay people, and I'm not suggesting anyone watch it. It's not horribly
insensitive as we might have expected.
No.
The whole movie itself is drowning in a sea of lazy incompetence and badness, but it wasn't...
Well, there's a horrible AIDS joke in it, which was just not... I don't even know that it's a joke. It's not even an AIDS joke. It's an AIDS acknowledgement that still shouldn't be in a movie made by a bunch of straight white people. And also, especially this coming in 1990, literally at the height of the... Not maybe at the height, but certainly towards the back end of the AIDS epidemic that, had destroyed a third of New York. So... And other places as well. So to even go like, oh, should we make an AIDS joke in 1990? No. And it's not that you're breaking taboos and being clever and this is some kind of like, artistic mouthpiece or whatever. That's horseshit. Like, if that makes you sleep at night, Robert Downey Sr., fine. But that's not what you're doing. You're like, oh, isn't it funny that everyone has to carry around, AIDS clear, identity cards? And you're like, no, that's not funny because thousands of people died of a horrible disease. So there's nothing funny about it. Basically what Robert Downey Sr. was like was, let's make a farce. What do we need for a farce? Well, I know. Let's have some gay people. Let's have a priest. Let's have a wealthy guy. Let's have a couple of people who live on a trailer park who are trying to sell land in, Russia and
that was
and
a joke
places.
That rubbed up the wrong way as well. It was like, oh, we're selling real estate in Chernobyl. Is Chernobyl's funny? No.
Let's have, the drunk ex-husband, or not ex-husband, but ex-partner of the daughter, show up and be like drunk and shambolic at the wedding. Let's have it all move towards a wedding because for some reason they have to get married, even though that's not part of the stipulation of the will. So I didn't really understand that either. But let's all...
That was going to... Listen, you have to produce an heir, because I'm not sure if I got that right. They have to produce an heir for the church. And then you're right, a plot point emerges like, and then I'm going to marry the father so that the father will swear that the kid is legitimate. I don't think that's how it works. I don't think you need to do that.
No.
That feels like a pointless, as you say, like a pointless reason to have a wedding at the end. And presumably to have like a scene at the end where there's music. Now, I have a question because we've both watched a lot of movies. And also there's a lot of irritating performances in this. But my question to you is the most irritating thing about this the music? And is the music the most irritating music of any movie that you've ever seen? Because I think it might be.
Well, it was so badly mixed into the film that I have to say it didn't even come across to me because it was so badly mixed. The only time it came across to me was when I was like, is this music really badly mixed into this movie? And
so
yes, it was.
Really low down in the mix for you?
Yeah.
Oh, when I watched it was really high and it was really terrible. And it was like obviously Oh, but then, I had an entirely opposite experience. It was really loud and all the way through
the movie. What did you watch it on?
Really cheap, on Amazon.
So did I.
Well, that's weird. It was really high and super annoying and terrible.
Oh.
Maybe I had it on the wrong setting or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, maybe. I mean, yeah. When I watched it, I mean, yes, the music was awful. The music was like canned. I wouldn't even call it synthesizer, like cheap keyboard. It was literally
like we're trying to replicate like other things. You know
like
what I mean?
A kind of Benny Hill type. Like it was. There was one sequence.
It was like a really annoying like piano, like an actual piano playing like off key notes. Where the whole thing was like that. Like I'm bucking convention, but just that was enough. It was really clueless. Like I'm going to follow the convention up to a point. And then I'm going to buck it, and then that'll be enough. That'll be a movie. Then that'll be countercultural. That'll be subversive. I'll be a subversive approach to a farce if I follow the convention right up until a point where I decide to buck it in an annoying way that serves no purpose except to buck that convention, and that's it. It's fucking awful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, there's some idea of. There's some idea, as I say, of Robert Downey Sr. as being this, guy who, like, no taboo satire and, putting a finger up a convention and stuff. But to be honest, this is my theory on not just him, but on satire and bucking conventions or whatever in general. And in general, it's much more subversive to make something within an industry that is either a dark commentary or a satire or subtle or subversive or anarchistic or whatever, than it is to be, a dude with $3 to rub together, being like, ha ha ha, wouldn't it be funny if, and just making a bunch of bullshit. In the same way with satire, if you apply satire with a sledgehammer, it's not interesting. If you sprinkle satire throughout, if you can convince 50% of the audience that what they're watching is just a normal movie, but the other 50% get that there's like some inherent satire into it, that's far more interesting than just being like, oh my God, look how satirical we're being. Why? Oh, because of black people. Yeah, but what else? Oh, because of gay people. It's not like, it's not interesting. It's not clever. It's not fascinating. And Too Much Sun strikes me as someone who's like, behind the camera and even on camera, because I think Robert Downey Jr.'s performance belies this as well, that like, oh my God, look how irreverent and knockabout we're being, and it's so the attitude from behind the camera that pervades in this movie grates your teeth. Just the attitude in which this movie is made grates your teeth.
It's made by a guy who hasn't made a funny joke in 20 years, but everybody laughs when he tries one. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody laughs at his jokes that haven't been funny for 20 years.
And look, I know that Robert Downey Jr. has become something of a latter-day darling, and I love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Iron Man 3 and a bunch of movies that he's in. Chaplin is a big favorite of Kim's, and there is some other stuff that I really liked him in. And so I'm not going to bash Robert Downey Jr., but there is definitely an indication in this movie and in other movies of him as a kid where it's very obvious that he was, a spoiled and precocious and pampered little shit who probably, and I don't mean to be horrible, but prison probably did him a world of good. And I don't mean to, I just mean like, and I don't wish that on anyone, but like, there's a reason why he kind of, ran roughshod for as long as he did. And there's a reason why a more humble Downey Jr. now is more interesting Downey Jr. Because especially when you look at him in this and some others, you're just like, all right, I get it, but but stop.
But this is just borderline annoying, and there's no character there either. There was nothing being expressed, no point being made, no joke, no laugh, no nothing. Nothing was being pursued. It was just, oh, he'll do that, and that'll be enough. That'll be funny.
Yeah.
And it's not even like questioning why. It's
also, there's that thing of, and this normally applies to either art, like as in paintings or whatever, or as in sculptures or installations or whatever. But there's something about sort of the word surreal, which also gets sort of bandied around about his movies, and there's certainly a couple of things in this that are attempting to be surreal. That when it's surreal with no art, it's glaringly obvious that it is void of talent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so surreal is something you could do when you don't have anything else. So I will just be weird, and that will be enough. That will be surreal. It's sort of, yeah, it's I tell you what it is. It's like it's the lazy choice of the unaccountable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, like, you don't have to be held to account. Like, Downey Sr does not care if people review the movie well, if they watch the movie, he doesn't care about any of it. He's completely unaccountable. There's no effort in this movie to try and reach something or get somewhere or do anything. It's just, I like making movies. I'm going to turn up, make some choices when they need to be made, if they need to be made, and then I'll go home and like feel satisfied with myself. So, but no, you know what I mean? There's no like desperation to reach something, even if it's just to get a laugh or make a point or even like get a nice shot or capture a nice bit of performance. Like there's no desire, there's no need. It's just there, and this is what I do.
Well, and there's also no understanding of good farce either. Like the whole point.
No, you're right. It's exactly like you're saying about the surreal thing. Same thing about the farce, right? It's what people who don't get why it's good think something silly is. Oh, well, if it's silly, that's farce. If it's weird, that's surreal. It's like, no, things can be silly and weird without being either of those things. So those things exist, you can describe those things as that, but it doesn't go the other way.
I remember years ago, as a kid, I was a big Salvador Dali fan, I think, as a lot of, I like cartoons, and I obviously grew up watching Terry Gilliam, so Salvador Dali appeals to kids, especially when you're kind of going through that phase. And there was an exhibition of his early work at the Hayward, like before he started doing the melting clocks and the flies and the stuff, like when he tried to do a bunch of different art. And it was packaged, like when you got the ticket for the gallery, it was packaged with like a modern art exhibit. There was 2 exhibits in the building, and we were going to go see Salvador Dali's early stuff, but we also kind of went in and there was this exhibit of, I don't know, modern art, new art, whatever you want to call it. And I never forget, because I went there with my mum, so I was about 12 or 13, and mum was like, do you want to go see the other exhibit as well? And I was like, sure. We were handed a book, like a booklet, as we went into the gallery that would explain all the pieces. And as we were walking in, Mum's reading, and I'll never forget, because the first line in the pamphlet that you got about the thing was like, the exhibit starts with a hole in the wall. And it was literally like, as you look down, it looked like someone was it looked like they were still setting up the exhibit. Like there was a little corner with like a bit of like a hole with some wiring hanging out or whatever that looked like they were still finishing it. Like, you know how sometimes you go into galleries and you're like,
I know what you mean.
There's a corner of the gallery that's unfinished, they're still working on it or whatever, or a museum or whatever. But no, that was part of it, right? Then, there was various stupid things like 15 fridges lassoed together with bungee cord and tarpaulin, and, someone had taken a shit on a brick or something. And then there was a blue canvas, just like it could have been Dulux color emulsion, who the fuck knew. It was just a light blue canvas that went from the bottom of the stairs to the top of the stairs as you walked up in Hayward, and there were 3 pages written about this canvas, and the reason why that comes back into my head time and time again, but especially when I watch something like this, is the flips and twists that people will do to fall over themselves to declare something so obviously not art, just so that they remain relevant, or just so that they, you know, justify a bunch of existences, or just so that they sound intelligent, or just, I don't know why, but like people will do a bunch of, I remember the other thing that my dad used to quote in an irate voice that he heard on like Radio 4 or something, was he heard an artist being interviewed, some old fucking British like duffer kind of artist, who went, well, you know, if I make a cup of tea and I'm an artist, then that cup of tea is art. And I remember my dad being like, fuck off. And I think that there's a lot about movies like this, and it's not just this movie, and it's not just other art movies that I've seen, but there is a lot about movies like this that rings to me as wholly shallow, wholly hollow, completely devoid of authenticity, and yet somehow daring me to be pissed off at it, because if I'm pissed off at it, they're like, yeah, we got you. Like, my art gave you an emotion or something. Do you know what I mean? Like that, just like that shitty fucking like, oh, well, we lassoed together a bunch of refrigerators, covered them in tarpaulin, and someone sat in a bubble and took a crap. And because you're angry that it's so obviously a massive waste of time, money, energy, space, anything, like it's such a waste of human endeavor, because you're angry about that, it's art. Like, fuck off. Like, it's so inauthentic and it's such wank. And this movie and the 40 minutes of Putney Swope that I watched reminded me of those things, where I'm just like, nope, you can't, like, you could some guy in a cravat could show up and talk to me till I'm blue in the face. It's bullshit. This is a childish, amateurish, entitled, ill-advised, homophobic, wank rag, and it's just, I'm sorry that we watched it. I'm really, as bad as Burn Hollywood Burn was, it was at least like a car wreck where you were like, wow, all these millionaires showed up to just, be in a horrible 10-car pileup. This wasn't even that, though. This was just the only thing that I could gain any kind of remote interest from was, how do you put all these people in a room? And like I say, it can only be that he got to this point in his career and he's like, everyone else thinks I'm a fraud. These are the only people I can get to come to my parties. Like, that's really how the casting was, don't you think? Like, Eric Idle, Leo Rossi, Andrea Martin, Robert Downey Jr., obviously it's his son, Ralph Macchio, James Hong, like, it's just such fucking like
Jennifer Rubin. It's very weird.
It's like someone just flicked through the Rolodex of people who weren't doing anything that week and were schlubbing about some, low rent buffet down in the valley. People were like, can we?
And it can't have been at the cinema, right? It must have been, because it was. I saw a 4:3 copy. Is that what you saw?
Yeah, the 4:3. Yeah.
So it must have been for TV. It must have been, or video, straight to video.
No, that's not what that means. What that means is the only version that Amazon could find to stream was one that was probably, for video. It doesn't mean the movie was made for video. It just means that whatever the version that was available. Most movies that we watch now that are either 185 or, some other version of widescreen, it either means that their movie's relevant enough for them to go to the original film print, pull it, remaster it, and put it up, or they were movies that have been put out since the advent of DVD and Blu-ray, where those formats favored, even with the black bars, putting out the widescreen version rather than the full screen version. Once TVs became even remotely widescreen, 16:9 or whatever, DVDs and Blu-rays started to cater it. There's very few that are left that are like pan and scan or 4:3 or whatever.
Okay, I know that. Okay, that makes sense.
But back when those movies came out, that was the only TV thing.
Can we stop talking about it? Can we talk about our next season?
Well, what I wanted to do very quickly was say, we've covered 4 Eric Idle movies, and one might say 4 disparate Eric Idle movies made by different directors with different concepts and different things. However, I don't know if you noticed, but themes have emerged throughout.
Have themes emerged?
Themes have emerged.
I did not remember the themes.
Well, if you look at this and Splitting Hairs,
okay.
You've got
ill-advised farce.
Ill-advised farce, but you've got a fortune that could be lost to the wrong person. You've got kids that have been separated from their parents. That's a theme that runs throughout a lot of Idle stuff.
Yeah.
You've got an insane asylum, which shows up in Burn Hollywood Burn in this. You've got him like farcically romping around with women, which plays throughout. You've got, obviously money plays a big part in it, in Eric's worldview.
Yeah, money is a motive. You're right. I wonder if he's drawn, because he hasn't made that many movies, and I am puzzled as to why he made. I can't believe he wasn't offered better movies.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
So the last 2 interesting things, I tried to do a deep dive and find someone saying something about this movie. I found some reviews, but the only thing I could find that Eric Idle talked about Too Much Sun was on an episode of Aspel and Company.
Wow.
Michael Aspel, that bland vacuum of horror from the 90s. And Idle was on there talking about Nuns on the Run and breaking his back, because apparently he broke his back. He hurt his back. But Aspel brings up, because he mentions, he was like, I was just finishing a movie and then I fell over by my swimming pool and hurt my back. And Aspel goes, was that movie Too Much Sun? That's been described as an underground sex comedy, right? That's what Aspel says to him, right? To which Eric Idle, first of all, shoots him daggers as if to go, please don't bring up Too Much Sun. But then he quickly responds with, have you ever tried having sex on the underground? Which is actually a fairly funny line. And says, have you ever had a knee trembler near Cockfosters? Which, is trying to divert it. But then Idle says, fairly knowingly, he's like, I don't really want to talk about that film, Michael, on a family show. But you can see, when Aspel says Too Much Sun, you can see Idle's face. Just go, oh shit, did he see it? Is he going to bring it up? You can see it on his face. Also, other telling thing, Robert Downey Jr. was on the latest series of My Next Guest Needs No Introduction, the David Letterman show on Netflix. And he brings up, obviously Letterman brings up his father and his father's filmmaking and stuff like that. And there's a little reaction by Robert Downey Jr. when he brings up his father's movies where, and he doesn't go too deep into it, and he mentions Putney Swope and a couple of others. But there's something where you see a smile come across Robert Downey Jr.'s face as if to be like, well, my dad doesn't make real movies. You know what I mean? He doesn't say it, but he has a look on his face like, yeah, sure, Dave, movies. And so they're the only 2 tiny little things that I could find about.
In other words, what you're saying is the only record you can find of people talking about that movie are brief flashes of either horror or denial, going across behind the eyes of people that were in the movie. But that's it. Nobody came out and said anything on the record. All they said was, "Please God, don't make me talk about it."
Yeah,
which I think is how I'd like to remember the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season. Is please God, don't make me talk about it.
One question I have, though, is because there was that one year when we were doing Sleazy Spade of Springtime that you were like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I'll just do one episode and then you find other people to do other episodes.
Yeah, which has worked quite well, I think.
No, I think you did most of the episodes last year.
I did this year, but only because, to be fair, it was a plague.
But what I want to say is, has this not put Sleazy Spade of Springtime into...
Oh, yeah. It makes me want to do Sleazy Spade of Springtime. It makes me want to do literally anything else.
I didn't make... Wait a minute. I keep saying that, like, I'm the driving force behind the Eric Idle season. I'm not the driving force.
I guess we both did that. In a moment of plague madness, we both decided on this.
We did.
I don't lay the blame for the Eric Idle film season at your door, mate.
No.
There's only one person to blame for the Eric Idle film season.
If there's
Eric Idle.
That's Eric Idle. You're right. There's only one person to blame, and that's Eric Idle.
Who is now officially your enemy.
He is my enemy.
You've made an enemy of Idle, which I think is delightful. But merely by going, can we talk about your movies? Because that's all it is, right? It's like, look, we picked 4 of your movies, and all we want to do is talk about them. And for that, you are now his enemy for life.
I am his enemy.
That's the level of denial that Idle is living in to his own work.
So what happened most recently was I posted the Robert Wool interview, the aforementioned Robert Wool interview, and I tagged Eric Idle. I was like, on this episode of Booth Talk, I interview Robert Wool. We talk about Batman, Good Morning Vietnam, and Missing Pieces, which he's starting with Eric Idle, which is like a really fun romp that is ripe for rediscovery or something like that, right? Eric Idle liked the tweet, and I was like, oh, he liked the tweet. That's awesome. He liked the tweet. And then about an hour later, once the tweet had about 20 likes and Robert Wool had retweeted it and other stuff, I went back scrolling through the likes and noticed that Eric Idle no longer liked the tweet. So what that means is he liked the tweet.
And he probably, all he had to do was visit the page and saw it as part of the outrageously bad Eric Idle films. He went, oh, this cunt. And then unliked it.
No, because the Robert Wool interview goes to Booth Talk. It didn't go to the outrageously bad Eric Idle.
So it's not going to take much poking around the After Movie Diner website, is it, to come across what we think of Eric Idle and his movies?
So true. But we did really like Missing Pieces.
Yeah, we did.
So, quick thing. If you could find an 80s movie that you remember from the video store that you haven't seen that has Steve Guttenberg in it.
Yeah, okay.
By the way, do you remember the movie Toy Soldiers?
No.
Because it's like right on the cusp. It's like 91, I think. It's not 80s.
I'll happily give that go. I've never seen it. I'd be happy to do that.
But Keith Coogan and I talk about that a lot in the interview, because that was the reason I got the interview, because that's my favorite movie that he's in.
Well, do you want to do the movie and then, like, if we do Toy Soldiers after that, would you release the interview after that, or just...
No, the interview I can hold off. It's the 30th anniversary of the movie this year.
I'll happily do Toy Soldiers, and I'll happily do... What movies is... I'll happily do Diner. I'll happily do, like, a Gutenberg movie. I really, really will. If there's a good Gutenberg movie that I haven't seen, brilliant. Let's do that.
So in my... Because John was asking me about this. In my lead up to the Steve Guttenberg interview... I watched a bunch of Gutenberg movies that I'd never seen before. Not the ones that everyone would think of, like Short Circuit and Police Academy, but I watched like a few of the ones he did in between those movies, thinking like, oh, maybe there's a hidden Gutenberg gem in there. There isn't. There isn't a hidden gem at all. Like, there's a movie called The Bedroom Window, which is sort of... it's by the guy you like who did LA Confidential. It's by Curtis Hanson.
Oh yeah.
But it's so, like, I almost want you to watch it, but at the same time, it's definitely one of those movies that you're like, it's a thriller, right? It's a thriller, and it has a good concept. And the concept of the thriller is, a man is having an affair with his boss's wife. During said tryst on the night of a party, so he's left his boss's party early. His boss's wife has left the party. She's turned up at his apartment. They're doing the nasty. While that's happening, they hear he goes off to the bathroom. She hears screaming outside the window, opens the window to see a woman being mugged. By her trying to open the window because the window's stiff, but also by people showing up on the street and whatever, the mugger like looks up at her, looks her right in the eyes, and then runs away. it turns out that this guy who was trying to like mug and attack this woman also like horribly, brutally like raped and killed 2 other women. She can't go to the police.
Oh, I hate those movies.
I thought you would. But she can't go to the police. So
somebody's like, oh, I can't tell the police what I saw for reasons. So you have to tell the police you saw. And then most of the drama of the film is going to come from the fact that you're saying something that you didn't see that I saw. I fucking hate that. It's bollocks.
Yeah. Well, I thought you'd think that. I was going to say that like about 40 minutes into the movie, you're literally screaming at him like, you could end this now. Like...
I know, I hate that.
Like, just tell the truth. So yeah.
But for now, let's do Toy Soldiers, and I'll find a Gutenberg one.
And Toy Soldiers, by the way, was definitely
what would we try to do first, by the way, in terms of like releasing of the interviews? Gutenberg or Toy Soldiers?
Let's build up to Gutenberg. Let's do Toy Soldiers next.
Okay, Toy Soldiers.
But Toy Soldiers to me is a prime video rental. Like that to me was not. I know some people saw it in the cinema, but that to me,
no, I agree.
Is like a proper rental. And if you can find, like, by the way, I don't mind doing I would love to do Diner, because that's kind of what I watched Diner, and that's what made me pursue the Goots was Diner. But it's not so much that I wouldn't say that's like a prime of the rental era. Sadly,
that's more of a like Discovery on BBC Two or Channel 4, and then it becomes your favourite, and you record it on VHS and watch it like 12 times. Because you've been doing really well with interviews. Go out there and get a couple of other interviews with people from that era, and we'll find a movie there's to talk about, to celebrate.
All right,
let's do it. Let's do an interview season. That's more interesting, anyway.
Okay,
if you want to.
No, I do, because I want people genuinely to subscribe to Booth Talk. Not that Booth Talk will ever stop the After Movie Diner happening. I love doing the After Movie Diner, but I really love doing the interviews. The more downloads, subscribers, sharers, retweeters, likers, commenters, reviewers, rate and review Booth Talk as well. But the more people we can get engaged with Booth Talk, I mean, everyone loves celebrity interviews, and I know that there are a ton of podcasts out there that do them, but I genuinely think that some of the people I've spoken to, I've had really fascinating conversations with that you haven't heard anywhere else.
Another thing we could do, which I would be okay with, is if you've ever done an interview with somebody, right, who you think is really interesting, you had a really good chat with them, and we never covered a movie of those. Like Hyams, we covered a movie. Like a lot of people we've covered a movie, but if there's someone that you interviewed that you really like that we never actually ended up doing a movie of theirs, then we could do that movie, right? And then you could like link to the old interview. That would be fine. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'd be happy with that too. I would love for people to just subscribe to Booth Talk. Really, it's not every week, but when the interviews do come, I think they're decent, and they're always interesting, and I always try and get something out of them that you haven't heard on another show. And we're normally talking about movies that they never get a chance to talk about. Like, Keith Coogan's always asked about the babysitting movies. He's rarely asked about Toy Soldiers. And Gutenberg, is will mainly talk about Police Academy, and I got him talking about Diner. It is something that's close to my heart, and I hope people enjoy. So subscribe, tell people about it, share it, like it, because it's much harder than the After Movie Diner to promote for some reason, and I don't know why. You would think interviews would be more popular than us rambling about shite, but. For whatever reason, and I think maybe it's my fault for making it a separate podcast. Maybe I should have just kept putting the interviews on the After Movie Diner like I used to. Maybe that would have been more successful. But I did it because I thought people who just like interviews, who just want to hear interviews, they are the unabashed, unedited, interviews for you to just go listen to them, as opposed to, as I say, tacking it onto our wank. But maybe I was wrong. I don't know. Tell me I was wrong. Anyway, rate, review, comment, send me stuff. And maybe what we try and do is
shared anecdotes.
We'll try and keep our interview, because I mean the way I work now anyway, it's better for me just to do like an hour-long show. So maybe we try and stick to an hour-long show for the interview movies, and then you bung the interview on the end, and by but also make it available through Booth Talk. But by doing that, getting people familiar with your interviewing style, then by doing that, you can encourage them to check out other Booth Talk available. Just for this season, we'll do that, and that's your way of like getting them to subscribe to the to Booth Talk.
Like we did with the Pleasance thing, which actually kind of weirdly worked. I would like to do that with the interviews.
Yeah, so let's do that. So we'll try and do a tight hour, right, of like Toy Soldiers, for example. Then put the interview with your man on the end, or just put just put the bit about Toy Soldiers on the end if you like, whatever you want to do, and then Booth Talk is like where the whole thing is, or where it is just exists on its own. And just for the interview season, you feature Booth Talk within the diner, and that encourages people to check out the whole thing and rate and review and subscribe and all that.
All right.
Cool. Let's do it. Let's do it, mate. The month of interviews begins.
That means I got to find
2 more.
Two more? Well, yeah, because you're not going to watch Small Town Crime, right?
Well, I don't know. Maybe, probably not. Maybe. I think I'd no. I mean, maybe. If you don't find anyone, if you have trouble, then yeah, we can do that. That's no problem.
Now, it's fine. I'd much rather some of the old 80s classics, and I'll try and get a couple more.
See if you can find somebody who's in Hawk the Slayer. I don't even know who the fuck was in Hawk the Slayer.
Yeah, I don't know about Hawk the Slayer. What was the? There were a few others. Like if I got I could try.
What about Beastmaster?
Mark Singer. I could try and talk to Mark Singer or Don Coscarelli.
Coscarelli would be good, right? You'd like to talk to Coscarelli.
I've met Coscarelli twice, but I've never interviewed him.
Well, there you go. He could be a good one, and then we could talk Beastmaster.
I'm gonna go out of my way to try and get a Robert Downey Sr. interview if he's still alive.
No, fucking no.
I'm joking.
Stop trying to get interviews with people that you hate. That would be my advice.
Yeah. I did tweet about this and tagged Robert Downey Jr. So I don't know if that's gonna help.
Oh my god! With Marvel money, you'll be shut down, mate. You'll be like deplatformed. They'll deplatform you. You'll be on Parler.
But no one's responded except my friend Craig Cohen. Oh, by the way, my friend Craig Cohen, who runs the Conversations from Jack Rabbit Slim's podcast, which I was a guest on, and that you should listen to because it was really cool. But Craig Cohen said, "I don't think I've ever heard that one." To which I responded, "It's certainly interesting." And then I said, "I'll say one thing. The Robert Downey Jr. tune at the end is great. He does like a weird Bowie Cockney rocker that's actually kind of really funny and catchy." Did you hear that at the end credits, or did you not stay through the end credits?
No, I didn't stay through the end credits.
So to play out this mistake of a show, we are going to be playing. We are going to be playing the Robert Downey Jr. song "Too Much Sun," because that was the other thing I was going to say. Every other Eric Idle movie we've done has had an Eric Idle song attached, except this one, which has a Robert Downey Jr. song attached.
No, there we go. I'm sure you're going to finish it with your Eric Idle song, but if you want to finish with the Robert Downey Jr. song, it's all right with me, mate.
My Eric Idle song?
Yeah, you know, your Eric Idle, the outrageously bad Eric Idle. Oh, did that already happen? Is
that would have happened at the beginning of the episode, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't believe you still haven't heard that. I can't believe you still haven't heard that. You still haven't listened to it.
No, I have heard it. I listened to the podcast, last week's one, specifically just to hear the theme tune.
And did you like it?
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really your best, but it was pretty good, yeah. But I could tell your heart wasn't really in it.
What?
I mean, there's times when you get swept away and then you come back with genius, and there's times when halfway through you doing it, you just lose. You just don't know why you're doing it. What's the point? And then you finish it because you're game, you know what I mean? And you never leave a song unfinished. But I could tell when you're...
but don't you understand that was part of the joke of the song? It's meant to be an Eric Idle song, and Eric Idle comedy songs are notorious for starting. You go, oh yeah, that's a funny observation, and then halfway through you're like, oh wait, that he's just doing that then, and then it ends, and you're like,
then it was too meta for me, mate.
Yeah, that was the whole point. That's the whole thing I was trying to do.
Well, then you succeeded admirably.
Okay, well, it's all gone wrong, and let's end the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season
on that misguided note
with a whimper, not a bang. Thanks ever so much for doing this. Next week we'll be talking about toy soldiers, and we will have a Keith Coogan interview for you. Exciting.
Hi guys. What? Yeah, I know I'm late. Of course I know I'm late, I just got in. Listen, I don't want any guff and don't be a prat, alright? It's like I got hung up over LAX for like 2 hours and I just touched down. Listen, you're on my dollar, so let's get with it, alright? 1, 2, 3, rock. Cha-cha. My name is Phil. And here's my song. It's like my willy. It's never wrong. I've had too much sun. My skin's all wrong. Too much sun. I spray my zinc on the sink and it feels so real. All I want is a record deal. I got 9 demos with a steel wheel feel. Hit it, Keith. Life is a dog nipping at my heel. I've had too much sun. My skin is all flaky. Too much sun. A rock star in the making. Yeah, go home, Bowie, got your green dress on. Young man, I've got a ring with too many chords to say. E, G, F, A, B, G, F, E, A, B, B, G, A, rum, gloom, gooey, bollocks, safety, don't dive in. Got my green dress on, yeah. When I make love, it's understood. Don't dive in without me safety hood. I'm a mob and I love you, baby. I'm a bad boy, dog, and I give you too much sun. Everything's wrong. I'm on my bike. End of song.